After the battle was over, I got on the transport and my adrenaline pretty much just left me. I was ready to pass out, but then the strongest and smartest of all the AI constructs came into view, and the sight of this pretty and curvy, naked little blue woman got my attention for sure. This 3D image tends to piss off a lot of the women around the world for obvious reasons, but we men, we enjoy it. We're not going to drool, but we're going to enjoy the sight. Before she begins to speak, though, I have Marie form herself right next to me. We listen as she speaks. She says, "Many of you have been inquiring why the distortions of reality keep happening, along with how do we prevent them. After compiling all the information and getting the data from this last distortion, we finally have an answer. The mixture of different quantum experiments from places like Antarctica, Mount Hayes, the CERN Hadron Collider, and a mixture of a few different personal experiments from Lockheed Martin, RTX, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Dynamics, all of them, along with several different other countries, caused an anomaly that is thankfully limited to this planet via the gravimetric field. This is why all the distortions have been suborbital. Even vessels that have the capacity to travel the cosmos arrive inside our atmosphere. Some may say this is bad, but surprisingly, this has helped us a lot. Through all this mixture of quantum tech just mixing in with each other, this is actually how our world is able to connect with other dimensions. The distortions are effectively called glitches in the matrix by most. This is possible due to the electronic universe, though this electronic universe, any three-dimensional video game that has the ability to become our own universe, bar none. Thanks to the mixture of these experiments, each of these universes has the potential to come into our reality and become part of it. When she said this, I started thinking about games, and I visibly shuddered at this revolution. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I didn't have time to think about all this as she continued. During the very first distortion, every single one of these universes converged at once. Everyone that lived through it remembers seeing ships or personnel and even creatures that seemed to disappear soon after, leaving a single fantasy game to take the entire share of the planet. This was due to a simple overload of the system as it came in. Basically, it extended too far, and like a rubber band, it had to snap back. Now, instead of all at once, all of these will arrive one at a time, and what seem like random times. Only after a number of distortions, with our scientists and engineers compiling all the evidence they could, we are finally able to figure out which one is going to be next. In fact, we might be able to go further. This confirmed my suspicion, of course, that they had geared us up on purpose, realizing they knew what was coming, and if we hadn't got all this gear, all this armor I'm wearing, these funky weapons, these shields, even those big-ass ships that are floating through our atmosphere right now, we would have been totally screwed. She then continued, "However, they did not know when, nor could they tell which one was going to emerge afterwards. With the data collected from the latest distortion, it has now been confirmed that we know what and when it is going to arrive. Due to the fact that some of those dimensions, those what we used to think of as just video games, having beings and creatures strong enough to destroy most of the planet damn near instantaneously, it is important that we work on our countermeasure. Our countermeasure includes a complete refit of the Eiffel Tower to become a transmitter, a giant forcible transmitter. This isn't just because the Eiffel Tower exists and it gives us a base. Absolutely not. In fact, we found out that because of the Eiffel Tower itself, it becomes more of a receiver. Many of you still remember the Battle of Paris, one that leveled 3/4 of the city, yet we were able to stop them. It was not long after that they realized what was going on with the Eiffel Tower and that somehow there's some sort of convergence in that area. Once we complete the transmitter, it will be possible to cause the distortion to actually occur on other planets inside the Sol sector. Unfortunately, we can't go beyond it, but it must be inside. This will allow the species on this planet, all of them, to survive by sending the absolute worst enemies to perish on planets designed specifically to kill them, to destroy them, to burn them, freeze them, melt them with acid in any way, shape, or form to stop them from spreading. However, there's one issue. We will not be able to construct this transmitter in time to stop the next distortion, as it must be operational prior to the previous distortion itself. This means, as our timeline shows, we have 2.9 years to build it and have it active, and must be able to protect it throughout the next distortion. That is paramount. Yet we do not believe that that is going to be an issue. With the end of that phrase, I saw the game world that was about to be in the distortion, and I smiled at Marie, and she gave me a strange, mischievous grin. Neither of us said anything, but we already knew what each other was thinking. Arriving back home, the girls were waiting by the RV as the transport landed. Seeing them, I waved, and they came a-running. All three, along with my neighbors and my sister with her kids, and one of my other nephews. They all gave me a giant big group hug, but I just kind of had to stand there as they all got all those feelings out of their systems. I honestly still couldn't feel anything through this suit. They were pressing right up against the plates, and seeing who was and what was squishing up against me, I hated the suit for that particular moment. As we drove away, I got in a position and actually tell everybody, "Get back, this thing'll hurt you." As I stood there, I let the machine take the outer shell off of me. They never get tired of watching it strap all the pieces on or taking all the pieces off of this nanosuit. I honestly can get my fill of it, as it still just kind of moves you in all sorts of weird positions. Once the outer shell was off, I started walking towards the closet that removes the nanosuit. I saw them all watching, so I strutted just a little bit. I unfortunately ended up 2 degrees off cool, as my nephew had to avoid slamming us into another vehicle and just kind of shuddering the whole RV. The sudden shift sent me rocking to one side and had me tossed unceremoniously into the closet. Before activating the removal process, I told my family they might not want to watch. They didn't know why, although they realized why really quick, as the odd connecting pieces began to unfasten and proceed to peel the nanosuit off of me. It didn't take long at all for any of them to turn away, yet there were still at least 4 sets of eyes that didn't seem to blink as they watched the suit get removed. I'm sure they would have enjoyed it more if it wasn't for the aroma that proceeded to fill the RV. After a week and change in a skin-tight bodysuit as I ran around sprinting, yeah, needless to say, the windows got rolled down really, really fast. I made it a point to have Marie send a recommendation for a small bathroom with a shower to be reinstalled in the next upgrade of these RVs if they can get it. Because seriously, even I was grossed out. Realizing I had no spare clothes, I asked for anything. Anything. Somebody give me something. Anything here. I don't need to scare the neighbors. Unfortunately, it's the middle of summer, so not many people were wearing much. The only one who had anything to spare was Emily's, and it was just a light shawl, but I mean, you could say it's better than nothing, but then again, it might as well have been nothing. The damn thing was nearly sheen. I should know, I remember buying it for her. But after living in this neighborhood with these girls, I really stopped giving a shit about such things, but still, I don't need that neighbor that really doesn't like me to get all pissy because I told her I've already got girls I'm screwing. I don't want to screw you. Of course, I was a little bit more subtle about it, but that was the gist. Once we finally got to the house, I ran over, grabbed the hose, and got most of the gunk off my skin. Seriously, I was about to yak from my own stench. I still needed a shower, but at least it wasn't going to put everyone off their appetite, me just walking in. Seriously, if I had a dog, I'm sure it would gag from the smell. Once in the house, I went straight towards the shower. The girls followed right behind, and then a blue widow spider actually followed, and then another walked through the threshold of the room. That's about the time I heard someone else yell, "Mom!" I had to say the shower was not big enough for everybody, but the jacuzzi is. We would take a dip later, but right now, I just need a shower. Just a shower, nothing else right now. Even though, yes, everything else will be fun, but seriously, I need a shower. I need something to eat. After a quick rinse, dinner was ready really fast. Seemed like they had been cooking all day and just had to warm everything up. It's difficult to think I've barely eaten in a week, but back in the day, I mean, come on, that was normal for going to the field. Sometimes a week or 2 weeks, no food. You missed the log pack. Well, oh well, sucks to be you. So I was used to it. Some of the other guys did nothing but complain the moment they stopped. I was still a bit dehydrated, so no alcohol for me. I know better than that. But nothing was going to stop me from trying to make my stomach explode from all this freshly prepared homemade food. Oh, it was glorious. In between bites and after dinner, I told them about what happened, making sure to avoid some of the more disturbing details. They don't need to hear that. It'll give them nightmares. Once the family had their fill of my time, they went home. And my neighbors actually ended up passing out on the sofas as both of them ended up polishing off at least 2 or 3 bottles of wine themselves. I was dragged into the bedroom, quite literally, after that. I was so tired that I was unable to fight back as if I actually would anyway. I had been getting side glances into the girls' new forms that evening. Even during dinner, I couldn't stop my eyes from turning left, then right, then left, then right, and up and down, and everything. I tried everything to keep my neck from turning, but oh, yeesh, it's like putting crack next to a crackhead. They just want to turn and go, is yes, yummy. Looking closer at the two girls as they started to show themselves even more, I could see that Ruby was slightly on the stronger side due to the more muscle density she had. But Hazel was still strong for sure, given how large she was. Yet she did have more, shall we say, delicate features. Both worked for me. Although it would become inescapably clear that they had become tall, fit, feminine beauties with these new forms, I didn't want to worry about holding back at all. Unfortunately, as they had gotten onto the bed before we even started, the combined weight of all three of us crushed the box spring, and we ended up on the floor. Though the situation was funny, the bed wasn't exactly conducive to the activities we wanted to anymore, especially with a couple wood pieces sticking up through the mattress. So we decided plan B. We went to the jacuzzi where we stopped right in front, even though we had shedded our outer layers. We kind of looked over and saw there was already a certain blue, almost purple lady in the jacuzzi. I thought I heard it on before. Seeing that, I figured the night was going to be a complete wash because, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be with my girls in front of somebody like that. I mean, that's just rude no matter how much they might like the sight. But then I saw a blue hand come out of the water, wave a finger towards herself, and said, "Why don't you join me?" For the next 2.5 years, the construction of the giant transmitter continued without hesitation. Everybody wanted this thing made. It was actually completed a full month earlier than everybody expected and shocked the hell out of everybody with a seal of approval from our brilliant blue AI babe. At that point, It was simply a matter of preparation for the next distortion. Like clockwork, the transmitter activated a scant 5 minutes before the distortion, which was exactly when it was supposed to. This time would be different from the other distortions, though. This time, we were prepared. This time, we know where. This time, we know when. This time, we watched as the distortion was shown live to everybody and recorded for all others to see. The distortion starts as spheres of energy, seeming like you're looking through distorted glass that seem to get larger and larger, but very, very quickly. This energy was in different parts of the planet, 3 different parts, and we knew that. It was strange to think that distortions required the gravitational field to be created in. It was kind of bending even my understanding of physics, and I had most of it downloaded into my brain. Then again, would any of us want these things loose amongst the stars if they weren't limited by the gravity field? To quote the man, I think not. We watched as these spheres of distorted energy became surrounded by a strange fog. This, more like haze to me, is the quantum flux field required for such things. You look and it's basically pure energy. Like that was simply putting a chill down my spine as I realized that it had enough power that it could actually go unstable and end the entire sector within less than a second. Then the haze dispersed. The burst of energy from each of these areas spread like a shockwave over the planet. From this shockwave, 3 different species emerged. We already knew which one to be friends and which ones we would just have to start shooting. The giant insect species was not something to be played with. Also, there was no way of communicating as they only cared about consumption. Since we had dealt with this sort of thing before, the forces stationed at the southern border of the Sahara, who were lined up to face him, didn't wait. Once the bugs were identified over the desert, every personnel, vehicle, vessel went cyclic in their rate of fire. The giant bugs would not understand the idea of a multi-directional ambush before the massive amount of fire rained down on them from every direction. Even our new arrivals got in on this action. Those rocket-propelled bullets they fired would drive into the hardest carapace, piercing it, and then explode once inside. Both the men and women seemed to enjoy it. One of these giant armor-clad men looked at the Valkyrie at his side, smiling and laughing with the pure, hateful, bloodthirsty joy of the slaughter. Her, along with her other compatriots, showing that flowing white hair in the breeze, a side effect of their augmentation, were not taking any prisoners and just wanted to end these bugs and save humanity. This is what they do. As they bring death to the bugs, another group is actually arriving. This one is a fully automated group. Everyone can see them getting their weapons ready as the ship turns and all their turrets turn as well. In that moment, the pucker factor of the world went over 9,000. You don't fuck with a drone fleet. That is when these autonomous robots received a message from the automated personnel of this planet, and the multitude of AI constructs that now call Earth their home. Hell, even Marie got in on the conversation. Within just a few minutes, I was watching the text of the conversation, and it went from thousands upon thousands of pages of text a minute to symbols and other code, shrinking down to just 1 or 2 symbols, but with such minor deviations that you couldn't see unless you just basically blew them up to large size. Since we were now speaking to each other in a shared language, we all unclenched a little bit. Myself included, actually. Then the fleet turned their weapons and began to fire on us. Using the shielding upgrades along with the personal shields, even this one that I keep holding, we could use said shields to actually protect ourselves from the first volley as all our weapons, vessels, and personnel fired back. Ordnance actually collided in the sky before hitting the ships and close to us on the ground. I would have taken some shrapnel hits if it wasn't for that personal shield. As the robots began to deploy their dropships, the massive amount of fighters that were surrounding them fired thousands of missiles into them. Watching the ships get peppered was a fine sight to be sure, but I didn't have time to enjoy it. Robots ranging from human size to 20 feet tall walking boxes with cannons were moving in. It was almost funny to watch them casually walk. It was strange. They would walk right into the line of M250 caliber machine guns. Even Marie said, "Lordy, these things are dumb." A few of these enemies required rockets or something equivalent to take them down, but it was clear that these robots are very, very simple machines. We didn't have to worry about reinforcements, as the Earth fleet had fired a volley of energy and projectile weapons and went right over our heads. The vacuum from the coil guns nearly pulled me off the ground, even in this really heavy suit. But when they struck, if the ship they hit wasn't going down before, it sure as hell was now. As these enemy ships crashed into the desert, we realized that our defense line held surprisingly well. Or maybe I should say unsurprising, because we did know they were coming. On the ground, the firefight didn't last more than a few minutes, at least not for me. I'd be hard-pressed to even say it was up to 5 minutes total. I remember chuckling as I put the portable shield back onto my belt, thinking, at least I didn't have to buy a new one of these again. While this is happening, a third fleet enters. Two large ships, one looking like a carrier and the other like a battleship, arrive with their corresponding support vessels. Each one arriving as though they had come straight out of FTL, even making a strange thump in the air as they seemed to push the atmosphere away. The carrier immediately began launching fighter craft, and the battleship weapons are simply turning as though they're looking for a target. Before anyone fires, a message is heard. Attention carrier Fortunate Son and battleship Avenger of Proxima. This is the combined Earth governments. We have already dealt with the robot and insectoid forces. As of now, you are being ordered to stand down. Do not engage your weapons. I say again, stand down. It was a few long moments before we heard a reply. This is Captain Villeneuve of the battleship Avenger of Proxima. We are here to eliminate the scourge against humanity. Can you show proof of your non-aggression? Captain Villeneuve, if you would simply scan the area around you, you will discover forces well within range of striking you and the rest of your fleet. They are currently standing down, awaiting your decision. As the captain scans, the voice continues. I also must inform you, Captain, that we know your mission is to protect humanity. We also need to let you know that that has become a relative term. The girls back home were feeding me video, and we watched the carrier continue to launch fighters, but the fighters seemed to stay very close to the ship, and everyone held their fire and held their breath. Then another voice came in. This is Captain Griville of the carrier Fortunate Son. Checking sensor data, it is clear that you were prepared for our arrival. It is also true that you have kept your word and not engaged our forces. What concerns me is our sensors revealing autonomous robots and non-humans in your ranks. The voice from Earth came back. As I have stated before, the word humanity has become relative. We would be happy to explain the situation in detail in person. Would you prefer to send a shuttle to you? Or would you like to send a shuttle down to us? After another long pause, the response was, there is a much faster way, However, I will be aboard the shuttle shortly and take it to whichever location you send. Before the shuttle even launched, they had already sent the coordinates and actually pinged it on the radar with a massive energy signature. They wanted to make sure they knew exactly where to go. The shuttle left the battleship, went to the carrier, and they assumed to pick someone up, and then came down to the planet. One shuttle, and on both sides, had a squadron of fighters. Yet no one was locked on. Everyone tried to keep their muzzles down. This would be touchy, and they didn't want to piss him off, but you still want to be ready. When the shuttle reached the ground and opened its doors, the two captains walked out under full guard. To their absolute surprise, an entire brigade of different armors and unarmored units were in formation to welcome them. The world paused and held its breath again as the captain stepped in front of all these people standing there, and they could see that they simply had to walk up to those greeting them. They were greeted by the brigade and division commanders of these units, and when they introduced themselves and shook hands, the entire world actually unclenched after that. When they went inside, the entire meeting was sent out to everyone so they could see that there was no funny business or strange backdoor deals that might go and backdoor all of humanity if somebody decided to do something really stupid. The captains had a difficult time believing what was happening, but they couldn't fight the quite literal planet full of evidence. One piece that shocked them was a particularly blue body that had proof of who she was in the previous, or should we say, the dimension she came from. When she showed up in that tight outfit, we all found out that these men, well, they turned out to be red-blooded men after all, as she actually had to turn and say, "Eyes up here," and pointed up towards her face, and when they looked up, she lowered her visor with all those strange sensors that looked like spider eyes. I know that look she had in her eyes. She could have killed the entire delegation in a few seconds if she wanted to, but thankfully, cooler heads prevailed as everything was tense enough. By the time the two captains returned to their ships, most of the forces guarding them had actually been removed, pulled back, withdrawn. We now had peace, and peace of mind. Good thing, too. Maria relayed information about the next distortion, and as it turns out, they can tell us now actually 3 distortions ahead. Well, sort of. The next one was aimed at Mercury, and just a quick look, we realized why we didn't want it anywhere near us. The game that is coming from, the dimensions coming from, is an action-packed game with demons that seem like they're from hell and could honestly destroy everything, just make everything turn into just life not worth living. They figured they would send these demons to the hell of a different planet where there's no atmosphere and the temperature ranges from negative 290 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees centigrade, to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, 430 degrees centigrade. With our new combined fleet, we could actually sit back and watch the show on the optics as these things are going to end up going out. If they try to fly, they'll either freeze or burn instantaneously, or if they're really unlucky, they'll do both. After that is actually a simulation about cities that has a very high probability of aiding in our repopulation. We're actually down below 1 billion now as far as unchanged personnel, and we only have about another billion of changed. It's crazy. A major issue is only those that can have children are unaltered. And it seems like, well, I'm screwed in there, but in this case, kind of in a good way. Though, if they want to have children, both parents still have to be the same species. No questions. Non-humans, even after being a complete and total slut during the mating season, still find it difficult to conceive, not impossible, but still, we don't know the reason why. Yet, through the help of the technology we've got over so many of these distortions, they will actually start reproducing. Though this can lead to some issues in the future. We found out that after the first one, after it changed us, I shouldn't say it altered us, but a lot of things disappeared. The common cold isn't even a thing anymore. It's just crazy because nobody in any video game world actually gets sick. And we heal fast because that's what happens in those types of worlds. I mean, it's crazy. We found out that those that were elderly might sort of stay that way, but their health had vastly improved. My health improved as well, but I don't get older. No, neither does anyone else. Anyone that's born gets to a certain age and just stops getting older because that's the way it is. Our original reality was very different, but you know, it's not something we worried about now. Now we have the opposite issue. We don't have enough personnel, especially if one of these distortions isn't exactly launched to the planet we want it to. Speaking of which, we found out what that third and final distortion might be. That's why I say we might know three, because it's not exactly guaranteed. However, it's not known if it's going to be a distortion about female demons or some guy in green armor facing hell itself. Once that's figured out, though, we can decide whether we will allow the distortion on the planet so we can, have some more personnel to have a little fun with, or send them to Venus to deal with the acid-filled washing machine that is the Venusian atmosphere. Although, I don't have to worry about that right now. Right now, I'm just glad that I got paid well, my job's still there, I have great health, I live in my own house that I own with beautiful women, new tech that's arriving all the time, making our life even better, even easier. Life turned out pretty well. I remember once I wondered if this whole distortion thing was real or was it just fantasy? Well, now as I sit in this jacuzzi with a voluptuous, fit, green woman on either side of me, a blue femme fatale chatting up with our local busty dragon mommy and a sassy I realize reality, fantasy, why not both? Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed the final chapter in this saga. For those that have been with me or listened to the entire thing, I doubly thank you, and I hope you enjoyed. Before I go, I have to send out a quick thank you to one of my supporters. That would be Sir Delta Tango 2 Whiskey Echo. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I will see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.